Hello everyone, it's Tracy. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks very much for joining me. Today I'm doing the assembly tutorial for the test tube stand. This project has been designed by Nicole Silhouette here on YouTube, and I shall link her YouTube channel in the description box below. This die set is available from Andy's store, also known as RLJ Lives. For those of you with electronic cutting machines, it is also available as a digital cutting file, and you can get that from Nicole's Etsy store, and I shall link both in the description box below. So we'll get on to talking about the pieces, and I have all the pieces cut out here. So first of all, I'd like to talk about these two circles. We have one here on the left which is smaller than the one on the right, and the one on the left is actually the top of the test tube stand, the top layer, and the one on the right is the bottom layer of the test tube stand. And you'll need to cut both of these pieces 6 times. So I'm just showing you there, 6 of the smaller one and 6 of the larger one. We also need this piece here, and we'll need to cut this 8 times. And this forms part of the base. And we have this octagon. You just need one of those. There's this piece here, you'll need just one of these, and I'm just going to fold along the score lines. And just one of these also, so I'm just going to fold along the score lines on this one too. And this piece here. This piece here, we need to cut this 36 times. And yes, you did hear me right, that is 36 of these we need. And these will make up the separator panels on the test tube stand, but I'll talk more about that a bit later on. Then we'll need 2 of these pieces. We'll cut this one once, so I'm just going to fold along the score lines. This piece you'll need to cut 8 times, and just one of these. And again, I'll fold along the score lines and get my pieces ready. Now I'm going to talk about the decorator panels, and if you have purchased the digital cutting file, all the decorator panels are included, and that's what I've used today, the cutting file. With the cutting die set, I'm not too sure what decorator panels will come. I have actually got the die set coming, but I haven't received it as yet. So you can see we've got the decorator layers for both the larger circle and the smaller circle here, and one goes on the top and one goes on the bottom. Next up we have these decorator panels for the separator pieces that go between the test tubes. And what you'll notice with these, when you cut them, you will have to have 6 facing one way and 6 facing the other way. You can't just cut 12 all facing the same way, they won't work. So you'll need to turn your decorator paper over and cut it from behind, so you get the 6 facing one way and 6 facing the other. I hope that makes sense. You don't need to do it with the cutting file, of course. Next up we have the decorator layers that go with this piece, and you'll need 8 of them. And I've cut mine from a light blue paper and embossed it with my Swiss Dots embossing folder. Then we have these 8 rectangular strips. These 2 have been embossed, and these go on this piece here, which is part of the central pole. These pieces here are decorator layers for the bottom part of the central pole, and I'll show you that a bit later on, as well as these smaller strips. These remaining decorator panels here that I'm showing briefly, I'll talk a bit more about them later, but they're for the top finial. You're also going to need 6 paper drinking straws, and I've got mine here, all ready to go. So it's time now to get started and put this project together. So first up we're going to need these 2 shapes here, the smaller circle and the larger circle, and you've got 6 of each of them. And we're going to apply glue, and the glue I'm using is the art glitter glue, and I'm working on the smaller circle, which is the top layer of the test tube stand, and I'm gluing those 6 together. one on top of each other, so they are 6 layers stacked. So taking care to line them up so that the circles that the test tubes go in line up, and the circles that are smaller in the middle that the straws are going to pass through, they're nicely lined up as well. So make sure you take your time and line things up nicely. So I go ahead here and I've got my 6 glued on top of each other here. So that's nice thickness. It's about chipboard thickness, I think, when they're 6 layers thick. And then you'll go ahead and you're going to do the same thing to the larger circle, which is the bottom layer of the test tube stand. I'm going to apply glue to one side and glue those 6 layers one on top of each other, so they are 6 layers stacked as well. Taking care to make sure the test tube holes are lining up as well as the central holes for the straw or the straws. So I'll go ahead here and I get all my layers stacked, and now I have 2 pieces that are 6 layers stacked, a smaller one and a larger one. One is the top, one is the bottom. So next up we'll get these 36 shapes, and what I'm doing here is putting them into 6 piles of 6, because these 2 are going to be 6 layers stacked each. And these pieces become the separator panels that go between each of the test tubes, so they need to be strong and sturdy. So you'll probably guess that what we're going to be doing is we're going to be gluing 6 on top of each other 6 times. I'm getting it ready to do that. So I've got my first pile here and I'm applying glue to the back of it, and I'm going to stack these one on top of each other so they are 6 layers thick. Taking care to line them up precisely before gluing them and pressing them into place. And you'll notice with these pieces that the top has a shorter distance than the bottom, and that's how you can tell the difference between the top and the bottom, which will come into play when we are putting these into position at the end. So again, take your time here when you're gluing these together. You need to be as precise as you can. It just makes the finished product look nicer. So there we have one of our pieces, and you'll go ahead and you'll do that for the remaining pieces. So now I have 6 separator panels ready to go that are 6 layers thick. And what I'm going to do now, whilst I have them here, is put their decorator layers on, one on each side. So that's where these decorator panels, the 6 facing the right and 6 facing the left. And make sure you put them in the right orientation. You'll see there the top is shorter than the bottom. If they were all facing the same way, you wouldn't be able to have the pieces for the back side. So the little trick to do to get that, if you've got the cutting dies, is just turn your decorator paper over when you place your die down, and that way it'll cut facing the other way. So I'm just going to go ahead and put all my decorator layers on both sides of these 6 separator panels. So I've got those 6 separator panels here ready to go for later on, with the decorator panels on both sides. And they're a nice thick chipboard thickness. Next up, we're going to take these 8 octagons with the circles in the middle, and I'm going to separate them into 2 piles, one pile of 2 and one pile of 6. I'm going to glue the 2 together, one on top of each other, making sure to line up those circles with the edges. Once you've got the 2 here glued together, you can put that aside for later to dry. And the remaining 6 pieces we're going to glue one on top of each other, so that there's a 6 layer thick one. And a little trick with lining these up is that there are two circles that are in the middle that line up exactly with one of the edges. And that always helps me to line these up perfectly. Just gluing one on top of each other, making sure those circles are lined up nicely because you want the straws to be able to pass through them. And it's going to be 6 layers stacked. Like so. And then I'm going to put that aside for later as well. Then I'm going to take these 2 octagon pieces with the octagons missing in the middle. I'm going to put one aside for later, and with one I'm going to get its decorator layer, and I'm going to put that into position now. If I don't do it now, I won't get a chance to later, because once the finial is on top, it won't fit through over the top. And the only way you'll get it on there then is if you snip it apart, the decorator layer, and then glue it. So I didn't want to do that. So I'm now putting the decorator layer on. So it's a smart idea to do this now, and then you can put it aside for later. Next up, we're going to go back to these circles and stick the decorator layers on. And I have them here. So I've got my 2 for the smaller circle, one on top, one on the bottom, and the 2 for the larger circle. So I'll just get this smaller circle one done first, because the larger circle we need to do something else with it. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm just taking care to line up the decorator layer before pressing it into place, and do the same on the other side. Just get the glue on and then put it into place, taking care to line it up nicely. Then I'm going to put that one aside to dry. For the larger circle, we're going to put the decorator layer on one side only to begin with. So whichever side you want to be the top. We'll stick that decorator layer piece down. Then we're going to turn it over, but we're not going to glue this decorator layer on just yet. We'll just hold that for a minute. And then we're going to get this piece here that looks like this. And we're going to assemble this piece. Put some glue along that glue tab. Spread it along and then join the piece together. Making sure it's got a good hold. On one of the ends we're going to fold the tabs out. Apply some glue to those tabs. And put it into position over those middle smaller holes on the base of your test tube stand. Taking care to line it up so that none of those little small holes are obscured by this central pole that we are putting in. And the reason we are putting this central pole in now is so that we can put this decorator layer in place now to cover the tabs that are on the bottom of where we just joined it. So you can see there that you can see those little holes, and they're not being obscured by this pole in any way, so the straws won't get caught as we try to put them through. This was the only way I could think of to get this decorator layer in place without having to cut it to put it on at the end. See, it covers those tabs. So I'm going to glue that into position now. And as we get this more put together, you'll see why we did this now, even though you know it's to cover the tabs, but there wasn't really another way that we could get this decorator layer on without doing it now. You could leave this decorator layer off if you wanted to. It is the underside of the bottom tier of the test tube stand, so I don't think anyone would see it anyway. That is entirely up to you. But if you want to put your decorator layer on, I suggest you do it this way. So moving on, we're going to get these 8 pieces here. These make up the base, and I'm going to fold along all the score lines. So you can fast forward me doing this if you like. This helps keep the shape whilst we're putting it together. And once all those score lines are folded, we can now put this together. So working with one tab at a time, I like to start at the top here, apply the glue, smear it out so it has good coverage, and attach it tab by tab, one step at a time. So I'll put that in place, hold it till the glue dries a bit, flip it up to get to the second tab, and then bring it back down again, like so. And do the same for the next layer. Glue on the tab, and then pull it down into position. Taking care to be as precise as you can. This is another area where you need to be precise so that your base fits together nicely. So just take your time, one tab at a time. And so again, you can fast forward me doing this. I like to leave it in case somebody needs to watch the whole lot. So you can see it's coming together, one tab at a time. I hope you're all doing well and keeping safe. So that's half done. Just work your way around and join all of these together. So we're approaching here to where we're going to join the first piece to the last piece. And it's easier to join it from the first tab at the top and then go in from the inside to do the other two tabs. Just a little bit easier. And just press that into place. And my bottom tab there's being a little bit stubborn. So that's our base. I'm just going to push those tabs in a little bit. And this is going to go over the top of the base of the test tube stand, and we're not going to glue this just yet. We have a few other things to do first, so I'm just going to put that into position, fold out the tabs, and I apologize here, I've lost a little bit of footage, but all it is I'm showing you that I'm putting the straws through the center. So that's in the next bit of footage. So there's just a little bit of a blank clip here, and all it shows you here is that I have put the straws through the centre holes there. And I've got my octagon piece that's 6 layers thick here, and that's going to go on the bottom, which is the top from where you're looking, but it's actually going to be the bottom. And what you need to do here is find a way, this is what worked best for me, was putting the whole thing on the side, moving some of the straws down and out of my way, so that I had the straw that I was working on out the furthest, and making sure it lines up with the holes that are in that base piece of the test tube stand. It's important that you do that, otherwise your straws will all be out of whack. So I take a bit of time here finagling this around, and you're going to have to work out what works best for you, but this is how it worked best for me. Particularly also seeing that I'm filming. And the holes that these straws are going through are a snug fit. And that's why you need to make sure that you're stacking your pieces and gluing them together precisely. You can see one of my straws popped out a little bit. So I'm just now making sure that these straws, the ends of the straws, are down the bottom, like so. And you can see that the base piece there is not lowered down just yet. I just need it out of the way for the time being, so I'm not going to glue that in position yet. But what I'm doing here is gluing the tabs at the base of that pole to that octagon that we just stuck the straws through. And I'm just pressing it down so the glue gets a good hold. Then I'm going to go around and press all those tabs down, pressing against the work surface, making sure the glue gets a good hold. And that those straws are now flush almost with the bottom. Then I'm going to wiggle that base piece down so that it's level with my work surface. So that's level with my work surface, nice and flat. And now I'm going to glue those tabs that are on the inside to the central pole. So I'm just moving the tabs away so I've got easy access with the glue, and I'm using my pokey tool to do that. And then I'm putting the glue on the inside there. It is going to move around a bit at the moment, but I haven't worked out an easier way of doing this. Then I'm pushing the tabs against the central pole, and then I'll put it down on my work surface to get this all even again, and then go back in and push against the tabs against the central pole until they get a good hold. And that's why it's a good idea to use glue. Gives you that wriggle room. So once that's glued in place, it's time to stick the base of this on, and I'm going to put glue on just one tab to begin with. It's always easier to work with one tab first, and then apply glue to the rest of the tabs, working quickly, and also putting glue on that octagon piece. Nice generous amount there. And then we can close up the base, like so. And the beauty of using glue, again, is you've got that wriggle room. Just taking my time, pressing it into place. Using my work surface to press against the other sides, and then pressing that down so that that base octagon piece gets a good hold as well, that the straws are attached to. So that's our base. It's coming along nicely, and we'll build up from here. So next we need this piece here, and I'm going to stick the decorator layers on. So I've gone ahead and done that. And then I'm going to close this shape up. So I'm putting glue along the glue tab, bend it around and close that up. Press it firmly so it gets a good hold. And this piece slides over the straws like so. And that hides them. Moving along, we're going to make the finial. And I'm going to go ahead here and stick the decorator layers on. This is this funny pie piece that has a piece missing. That's what I always call it. Just putting the last one into position, and then I'm going to put glue on this side tab and join this piece together, like so. Then I'm going to do the same with the other bottom piece of the finial. Go ahead and put the decorator layers on, and then I'm going to close up the shape. Then I'm going to put glue on these tabs, the larger tabs at the top, and join that cone shape to it. And I always like to attach just one tab at a time to begin with, so it gets a good hold, and then press the others into place. And I've got all fingers on the go here, a couple inside pressing against, and then I open up the tabs at the bottom just so I can get in a bit better, and pressing all those together. And there we have our top finial. What I'm going to do now is get that piece that we put the decorator layer on earlier, because now's the time to put this into position. I'm just going to put glue on one of the tabs and attach it to the underside. Make sure it gets a good hold. This is a snug fit, and you can put the tabs through to the other side and then put glue on those tabs and press them into position on that underside. And I generally like to work opposite tabs to opposite tabs so that it stays nice and even. Just press down against my work surface, and you can see here that there would have been no way you could have put that decorator layer on over the top of that finial. So that's why we did it earlier. Next up, we'll take the other octagon, the remaining piece there, and glue that into position over the top of those glue tabs. Making sure you line up the edge pieces nicely with the centre pieces there, the centre hole. Press it into place. And then we're going to take that octagon with the holes in the middle, the one that is 2 layers thick, and we're going to glue that into position over the top of that, of what we just glued, and press that down into place. And that's the very top piece of our test tube stand done. So I'll put that aside to completely dry. Now I'm going to bring in the smaller circle, which is our top layer of the test tube stand, and I'm going to press that into place over the straws like so. And then we have this piece here. I'm going to go ahead and stick the decorator panels on. And if you have the die set and it does not have all these decorator layers, that's okay. You can just cut these pieces, or the actual piece that I'm sticking the decorator layers to, you can just cut that directly from designer series paper. As I've said before, that eliminates the need for decorator layers. But when you have the cutting file like I do, you get all of the decorator panels. So I'm just joining this piece up, and this piece here goes over the top like so. And this is the piece that covers the straws between the top of the test tube stand and this top finial piece, which just slides into position on top of the straws like so. And you can see now that our test tube stand is coming together nicely. So we can put the decorator layers on the bottom of the central pole, which I've gone ahead and done here, and now also the actual base piece. So I've got those base piece decorator panels here, just going to shape them a little bit and then glue them into position around the base of the test tube stand. And you can see that my decorator layers for the pole and the base and the top of the finial are all cut from a light blue piece of cardstock that I have in my stash, and I've run them through my embossing folder, the Swiss Dots one, to give it a bit of interest. So I'm just sticking that last one into place there. I went ahead and stuck the others previously. Just making sure the glue gets a good hold. And we're nearly done. We just need to stick our separator panels in place, the panels that go between the test tubes. And it's about here that I realised that when I stuck the top circle in place, my test tube holes don't line up. So I did a little bit of a oopsie. See, I'm not perfect either. So I just had to take the finial off the top and just move it around the straws in the right position so that it lined up nicely, so that the test tube holes lined up, and it does now. So to stick my separator panels into place for this particular one, I'm just going to run some hot glue down the spine of these separator pieces. Now make sure you are gluing it with the shorter bit at the top and the longer base bit is at the bottom. And you'll need to work quickly with hot glue because we know how quickly that dries. With the first one that I made, my practice one, I actually just used normal glue. So you could do either, because the pieces are thick enough that you can run the normal glue along the top edge, the bottom edge and that back edge. But if you feel confident using the hot glue, then go for it. This does seem a bit choppy, this footage, because my head kept getting in the shot and I didn't realise until I played it back. So sorry about that. So I'm just gluing these into position in the middle of those sections of the centre pole and making sure that it's lined up in between the test tube holes as well, both at the top and at the bottom. So I'm just gluing those last couple of separator panels in place. Again, make sure you've got the shorter end is at the top and the longer end is at the bottom. And I did make the mistake with one of mine and stuck it in upside down, but with the beauty of editing, you don't get to see that. So I'm just sticking this last one into place, and then I decided to take the finial off, that other piece off, take the top of my test tube stand off, and I ran some glue along this top edge of the top of them, just because I felt it needed a little bit more glue to hold it in place. And take care when you're putting this piece back into position, you need to make sure that your test tube holes line up, which they do. And I'm just pressing it down so that the glue gets a good hold on those the top, and then put this piece back into position and then the finial back in place too. And now I'm going to just hold this for a little while so that the glue that we've just put on those top pieces gets a good hold. And whilst I'm doing that, you're getting a really good look now at the test tube stand. It's nearly finished, just the decorating to go. So it's looking really good. I'm really happy with how this came out. The test tubes that I used for my test tube stand I just got from a cheap $2 shop here locally. These have a square bottom, they're not rounded. They're also too narrow to go through the holes, and I had to figure out a workaround. And what I actually did was put some hot glue around the top, and I attached a strand of pearls that I had in my ribbon box around, and that was a good workaround. Because Andy has actually sent me some, I believe, but I just haven't got them as yet, the actual test tubes with the round bottom. So I had to make do. And I've got my test tubes here filled with all my little goodies to go on my test tube stand. I'll just show you. It's a little bit tricky to tilt it to show you, so I don't want things to move out of place by being tipped on an angle, which they shouldn't, but you know what I'm trying to say. So I've taken it away and I've decorated mine now, so this is all fully decorated. And I put a bow on the top with some sparkling gems down the seams. I also put flowers down the very bottom of the base. You can't see it there. And the other sparkly gems again, and some ribbon around the base piece. And this one has been decorated purely for me. This is for my craft room, but this would make a great gift for a crafty friend, which I may do with my other one that I made, my practice one. So for photos of that one, you can look on my Instagram, which I'll link in the description box below. The paper I used today, in case you're interested, is from Kaisercraft, and it's the Amethyst collection, and this particular piece is called Flutter. And then there's just that blue cardstock I had in my stash. So that's my tutorial finished for today. I hope you've enjoyed watching and you feel inspired to make one of these. Don't forget to check the description box for the links that I've previously mentioned, and if you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Instagram, I would really love that too. Thanks very much for watching today. Have a great day, and until next time, it's bye for now.